On this video, I'm going to show you how to get your suspension looking from something like this to looking like this, using nothing but a lighter and a back scratcher. Amazing. Alright, before I get started, I'd like to do a quick parts breakdown. So I'm going to be removing the factory outer tie rod, tension rod, lower control arm, and sway bar link, and installing these pretty pieces. So it's the Megan outer tie rod, Megan tension rod, Techno toy tuning lower control arm, and energy suspension sway bar link. And also I'll be installing my recently completed coilover setup. So if you haven't seen that video, go check it out. Let's get to work. Alright, so let's get started. The only thing I'm going to keep here, the two things actually, I'm going to reuse the sway bar. It's a Tanabe sway bar. And I'm going to reuse the knuckle here. I don't feel called replacing it. T3 sells a pretty cool one with the outer tie rod, but I find it a little expensive and a little excessive, so I don't think I need it. And it looks like this ball joint's already torn anyway, so it's a good call to replace it. All this stuff is all the factory parts, so 30 plus years old. The only thing that I suspect might give me a little bit of issue might be this tie rod here. I already hit it with PV Blast, so should be okay. Got some tire rub going on there, but let's get to it. So here are the tools that I'll be using. Hopefully it doesn't come to it, but if I do need to replace or use this tool, then I have it there ready to go. It's a ball joint separator, but you could also use it for the tie rod. And just your generic tools, power tools, nice hammer. So yeah, let's get to it. The first thing I'll be doing, I'm going to remove the cotter pin here. It's the tie rod. And what I'm going to try first, it usually works, but it's an older car, it might not be so easy. I usually just back the nut off, but still leave it on there, and I give this a good couple of whacks. Sometimes you're lucky, this will actually just drop. Just basically this will unseize if it seized up there, and I did hit it with PV Blast, so if it does not drop, then I will have to use this tool. So we'll see. Hopefully I have a little bit of luck, but I'm gonna back the camera up because I don't want to damage it. Pretty stubborn, huh? So mine got pretty beat up, but since I'm not reusing this tie rod, it doesn't really matter. If you were going to reuse it, you might be a little more careful, but it still threads on, as I said. If I would have removed this nut and just mashed on it, then the tie rod would be junk. Right. I'm going to be removing the knuckle, which I will be reusing, just because I can't really justify spending that much money on a knuckle. I don't plan to drift this car. Maybe do some spirited runs, but not full on drift, so I don't really need all the angle. .22 mil. The ball joint's already messed up, so it doesn't really matter on this. Alright, now perhaps the hardest part of this whole removal is this guy here. Since it's a bolt that's about, maybe it comes up, it's obviously this long here, and this only goes back so far. I'm going to remove, well, I'm going to push back the boot here, and when I knock this loose, it hits the steering rack a little bit. So I try my best not to, I'll try my best not to damage this boot because I don't want to replace it if I don't have to. And these bolts are kind of a pain, to be honest, especially this one's that haven't been removed. So just like everything else, it's on there pretty tight. So I'll do my best not to rip that boot. It's some of these tools out of the way. So this is one thing that I have not liked about suspension so far. I really don't like the usage of this. I'm gonna be using a different system. I don't like this, to be honest. The other side, the threads were pretty mangled up. I'll show you in a second what they look like. So I'm gonna use something different. At this point, if you're going to be doing this and going to be reusing your outer tie rod, you either shouldn't be removing it, but if you are, I would suggest counting the threads and maybe marking it here so you won't lose your alignment. But since I'm doing all aftermarket stuff and I'm going to be taking to alignment after the install, it doesn't matter for me. So not too tight on here, just to be able to hold it. Clean the threads, and I'm gonna also be adding some anti-seize, and I'll be reusing these inner tie rods. Just gonna clean the threads, and like I said, the Megan The outer Megan tie rods are slightly shorter, so it's gonna change the alignment anyways. So yeah, now on to the install of the new pieces. So I'm gonna clean this little area up here, put these tools away, make some space, and I'm gonna move on to installing, of course, the new pieces here. All right, now onto the install. I have to admit, it's been like a month. It's been raining on and off, and I'm also in graduate school, so I've been pretty busy working full-time in graduate school, so I don't get the chance to work on this every day, unfortunately. But I'm officially in summer break. I just got my grades yesterday. He's falling off. I'm gonna start with the lower control arm. It's an old version T3 lower control arm. I've had it in storage for a while. I'm gonna be installing this first. So what I like to do with this one, because it makes it a lot easier to install, I'm gonna actually remove it. Because it's kind of a pain to be working with all this, and it's a pretty snug fit. Alright, so I'm just gonna install this trailer hitch looking thing first into the frame of the car. And one thing that I am also going to mention on the other side, actually on removal, you might not be able to see this too well, but this thing got stripped out pretty good coming off. So this is the original welded nut that Toyota provided, but on removal I had a really hard time removing it with the impact, and it actually stripped threads on the way out. So I'm not going to be reusing that. Instead, I'm going to use one of these guys. I believe this is actually from I want to say a S2000 suspension, or a Honda or Civic, I don't remember. So I'm going to be using this instead in its place. Plus it's just a little bit shorter, and it fits a little bit easier, because I mean, trying to install it with the boot here, the tie rod's kind of a pain. So this will make my time here a little bit easier. So anyways, I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna be installing this first. This is just easier. This is the way I do it. I find it easier. And with these, with this piece here, T3 supplies some washers. They go on both sides. It's kind of a pain. It's a really tight fit, so I'm gonna grab a hammer and a screwdriver and grab that rolling washer and get this on. Now we can throw this back on. The lower control arm on. I'm going to be putting back the knuckle. Just reusing the factory knuckle. I think that's a 22 mil. Alright, here's my coilover. You guys saw my previous video on the build. Next up, put on the tension rod. So this is a vegan tension rod. I think it's tricky because it's reverse thread. piece is the outer tie rod, vegan outer tie rod. One thing I noticed with this guy is it's slightly shorter, but it also has a little more adjustment. And I'm definitely going to be needing an alignment since it's all new and everything's been modified. So I'm just going to eyeball it and get it aligned. I'm also doing brakes. So I'm going to be removing this brake caliper and I'm going to inspect it. I might rebuild it. I'm for sure going to paint it black. And I got slotted rotors and some new pads. So fun stuff. Alright, so one thing I am going to do, I am going to take a wire brush to the inner tie rod thread, and I'm also going to add some anti-seize lubricant because that's factory 30-year-old steering rack. So yeah. Anyways, I'll be back with this already installed.